Okay, so we're ready to begin our Hebrew class for the second year students. We're going to begin by going to God in prayer. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for another day of life you have blessed us with, for health and strength. Be with us now as we explore the beginner's Hebrew. Give us an understanding heart that we can understand this lesson. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, thank you, Brother Solin, for helping us to get recorded on Zoom and on YouTube Live. I'm going to share my screen at this time with the students. Okay, can you see the, let's see. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, got a doctor.
All right, good. So we're looking at lesson number 11 entitled Dagesh Lenny. Later on in the class, I'm going to be showing you the Hebrew textbook online, which you can also get from the JSP Google Drive. And I will show you the particular page that Dagesh Lenny is on. Okay, the general objectives for this lesson are: one, to examine the meaning of Dagesh Lenny. Number two, to examine what part of a letter Dagesh Lenny may be found in. Number three, to examine what effect Dagesh Lenny has on a letter. Number four, to examine which letters may take a Dagesh Lenny. Number five, to examine when a letter may get a Dagesh Lenny. And number six, to examine when a letter may not get a Dagesh Lenny. The specific objectives are: one, at the end of this lesson, the students will have explained the meaning of two Hebrew words, Dagesh and Lenny. Number two, at the end of this lesson, the students will have identified what part of a letter Dagesh Lenny may be found in. Number three, at the end of this lesson, the students will have orally expressed what effect Dagesh Lenny has on the pronunciation of a letter. Number four, at the end of this lesson, the students will have identified 6 letters which may take Dagesh Lenny. Number five, at the end of this lesson, the students will have explained when one of these 6 letters may take Dagesh Lenny. 6, at the end of this lesson, the students will have explained when one of these 6 letters may not take Dagesh Lenny. Well, first of all, let us look at the definition or the meaning of Dagesh and then of Lenny. Dagesh is a Hebrew word. It's pronounced Dagesh, Dagesh, and it means piercing. Dagesh is a dot in the heart of a consonant. I'll soon be illustrating that on the screen. It's a dot. It's like a hole that has come about as a result of a piercing of the paper, or of maybe a cardboard or a board itself. It's a dot in the heart or in the middle or center of a consonant or letter, not a vowel, but a consonant. Now, the word Lenny means weak. There are 2 kinds of Dagesh, but we're just dealing with this one today. There is one that is also called forte, which means strong. But this one is the weak. This one is the weak version. And we will soon understand why it is weak. Now let us look at the effect of Dagesh Lenny on a letter. Dagesh Lenny hardens the sound of a consonant so that it changes the pronunciation of the consonant. For example, the consonant Vaith, the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet, the consonant Vaith, which is pronounced as our V, V. Without the dot in the heart or the middle of it, notice it has no dot in this consonant at all. Without the dot in the heart or the middle of it is to be pronounced as V, as V, such as in van. But when it has the dot in the heart or the middle of it, as you can see here, here is Baith. It's not even said to be Vaith, but it is Baith. And it is pronounced B, such as in bathroom. Notice the change in the pronunciation. It changes from a V to a B when there is a dot in the middle or the heart of the consonant. Another example is the consonant Fe. Without the dot in the heart or the middle of it, it is pronounced as PH, such as in the word telephone, or as the F in fan. It has an F sound, whether it's PH or whether it is the F. It has an F sound. But when it has the dot in the heart or the middle of it, as you can see here, this now is no longer Fe, but it is Pay. Notice the dot here in the middle. This one had no dot. Here is the dot, Dagesh Lenny. When it has the dot in the heart or the middle of the consonant, it is to be pronounced as P, as P, such as in path. So notice that in each case, the consonant has a different sound when the Dagesh Lenny is put in it. It has the effect of making the soft sound of the letter become hard. The B is soft, the B is hard. The F is soft, but the P is hard. It hardens the sound of a consonant so that it changes the pronunciation of the consonant. So that is the effect of Dagesh Lenny on a letter. It hardens the sound. The sound changes from being a soft sound to being a hard sound. The V changes to B, and the F changes to P. It hardens the sound of the consonant when there is a dot in the middle or in the center or in the heart of the consonant. Now these are the, I'm coming. These are the only consonants that may take Dagesh Lenny. Okay, so you have to get familiar with them. And that is Beth, Gimel, Daleth, Kaf, Pe, Thau. Or to be more accurate, because they don't have any dot in them, Vaith, Rimel, Daleth, Kaf, Fe, Thau. Now you may remember this if you consider this to be two words. They're not really words, but to remember them, there is a memory device that can be used. So let us say that there is a simple shawa under the Vaith, one dot over the other. And we can say, let us just say this is a book. So we can say this is be. Let us also pretend that there is a pathak, a short a, under the gimel, and that it does have the Dagesh Lenny in it. So you have be gath or begad to be consistent. Begad, begad, B-E-G-A-D, begad. And then another word here. Let us put another simple shawa, one dot over the other with an E sound. You have ke. Let's put another pathak, a short a sound underneath the fe. And this will give us the word kepat, kepat. So what we have here is begad, kepat, begad, kepat. Now, if you remember those two words, which are not really words, but a means of remembering these 6 letters, begad, B-E-G-A-D, begad, K-E-P-A-T, begad, kepat, then you will automatically be able to remember these 6 letters. If you don't want to go through that, then maybe you can remember it by simply reading it over and over again when you get the PowerPoint. Vaith, Rimmel, Gimel without the dot is an R sound called Rimmel. Vaith, Rimmel, Thaleth, Kaf, Fe, Thou. If you say that over and over again, you should remember the 6 letters. These are the only letters in the Hebrew alphabet that may take Dagesh Lenny. So if you see a dot in some other letter, it is not Dagesh Lenny, it is the other Dagesh called Dagesh Forte. So the good thing about this is, since you know that only 6 letters, which are these letters, can take Dagesh Lenny, you will know that the other letters that may have a similar looking dot in the heart of it could not be Dagesh Lenny, but must be the other one, which we have not yet studied. So begad, kepat, begad, kepat will remind you of the 6 letters, Vaith, Rimmel, Thaleth, Kaf, Fe, Thou. Now, Dagesh Lenny may be found in the heart or the middle of any of the consonants above, when any one of these consonants starts a syllable in the beginning or middle of a word, providing that there is no vowel immediately before that consonant. Now, I've said more than a mouthful here, so let me read this again. Dagesh Lenny may be found in the heart or the middle of any of the consonants above. We understand that. That means that Vaith can take a dot here. Rimmel, which becomes Gimel when I put a dot here, can take a dot. Thaleth, which becomes a Daleth when I put a dot here. Kaf, which becomes a Kaf, it really sounds the same when I put a dot here. Fe becomes a Pe when I put a dot there. And Thou becomes a Tau when I put a dot there. These are the letters that can take Dagesh Forte in the heart or middle or center of these consonants. But it does so under these conditions. Condition number 1, if any of these consonants starts a syllable, that is, a word is begun by Vaith, or a word is begun by Rimmel or Thaleth or Kaf or Fe or Thou, then you can put the Dagesh Lenny if it starts a syllable at the beginning of a word. And if it starts a syllable in the middle of a word, the same applies. You can put the Dagesh Lenny there. So it must start a syllable, whether that syllable is in the beginning of a word or if that syllable is in the middle of a word. But one last condition: if there is no vowel immediately before any of these consonants that you want to put the Dagesh Lenny in, then you may put it in. But if there is a vowel, then Dagesh Lenny is going to run out of that consonant. Dagesh Lenny is weak, and if there is a vowel that comes immediately before a consonant like these, in which you could put a Dagesh in it, but it has the vowel before it, the Dagesh Lenny is going to run away from it. It's not going to stay. It's weak. It cannot stay there. It comes in like it is frightened of it, so it cannot stay there. So once there is a vowel, any vowel at all, before these consonants that could take the Dagesh Lenny in it, once there is a vowel, whether it is a short vowel or a long vowel, Dagesh Lenny is going to run away. It is going to flee. It's not going to stay there. Okay, so here are the conditions. Condition 1, you can put a Dagesh in any of these consonants if these consonants, any of them, starts a syllable. Condition number 2, if it starts a syllable in the beginning of a word, you can put the Dagesh Lenny in it. Condition number 3, if it starts a syllable in the middle of a word, you can put the Dagesh Lenny in it. Condition number 4, if there is no vowel immediately before the consonant that you want to put the Dagesh Lenny in, then you are free to do so. But if you notice that there is a vowel immediately before any of these consonants that make up a word, don't put the Dagesh Lenny in that consonant, because the Dagesh Lenny is not wanting to stay there. Not wanting to go there because of that vowel. So these are the consonants which may take Dagesh Lenny. Begad, kepat. Begad, kepat. Begad, kepat. Now let us look at examples of when to use Dagesh Lenny. Here is a word, batak. Batak. He trusted. Now notice that Dagesh Lenny is in Beth. Notice it is in the middle of the consonant. It's in the heart or it's in the center of a consonant. Let us pretend that this hole has been made because there has been a piercing of the Beth. So you see a hole in the middle. So there is a weak piercing right here. Now notice also that this consonant starts a syllable. The syllable is ba, ba, and it's at the beginning of a word, ba. So it is free to have Dagesh Lenny. Notice there is no vowel immediately before Beth. The vowel that is there is after Beth, but not before it. So it wouldn't be scared with a vowel underneath it. It is scared if there is a vowel before it. So that is why we still have Dagesh here. But notice here also, over on this side of the screen, this is the word yikbor. Yikbor. He will bury. Notice we're dealing with Beth again. Notice that Beth starts a syllable in the middle of the word. This is the first syllable, yik. This is the second syllable, bor. And so at the very beginning of the second syllable, you have Beth. So it starts a syllable in the middle. It starts a syllable in the beginning of a word. It starts a syllable in the middle. So once that consonant that can take Dagesh Lenny starts a syllable, whether it's in the beginning of a word or in the middle of a word, then you can put the Dagesh Lenny in it. Now let us look at what happens when there is a vowel immediately before a consonant that would otherwise be able to take Dagesh Lenny, like up here. Notice that there is the vowel short hirik, a short I sound, I, immediately before the vase. So because there is a short vowel before the vase, you can't put the Dagesh Lenny in vase, because one of the conditions for putting the Dagesh Lenny in vase is if there is no vowel immediately before vase, or any of the other consonants that Dagesh Lenny could go in. This is the word yivtak, meaning he will trust. So notice the vowel causes vase not to have a Dagesh Lenny. The vowel here, I'm talking about yoth, talking about this dot here, this vowel, I, causes vase not to take a Dagesh Lenny. Let us look at this word, kavar, which means he buried. Notice that there is a long vowel, kames, which is an ah sound, kavar. There is a vowel immediately before vase. Now vase starts a second syllable. This is the last syllable in the word kavar. And even though it starts a syllable in the middle of a word, since there is a vowel immediately before the vase, you can't put the Dagesh Lenny in. So notice, vase does not have Dagesh Lenny because a vowel is before it. Vase does not have Dagesh Lenny because a vowel is before it. So let's go through this one more time. One of the conditions for putting Dagesh Lenny in vase is if it starts a syllable, whether it is in the beginning of a word like batak, or in the middle of a word like yikbor. And so, since it meets those conditions, including the one that there is no vowel immediately before the vase, you may ask, but Brother Buckland, what about this? This is a simple shawa. But remember, we learned last trimester that the simple shawa is not a vowel. It's not a vowel. If there was a vowel here, you wouldn't have simple shawa. Simple shawa is used only when a consonant does not have any vowel underneath it. So rather than leave a gap or a space, you put simple shawa there. So simple shawa itself is not a vowel. It may be like a vowel, but it's not a vowel. If it were really a vowel, we couldn't put Dagesh Lenny here. So Dagesh Lenny is put in a consonant when that consonant starts a syllable, either in the beginning of a word like you have here, batak, or in the middle of a word like you have it here, yikbor. This is the middle of the word. This is the beginning of the second syllable. So we put the Dagesh Lenny in both of them. Down here, yiftak, the Dagesh Lenny can't go here because there is a vowel right here before the vase. So the vowel causes vase not to have a Dagesh Lenny. And for the same reason, because there is a vowel, a long vowel, before the vase, and you know that even though vase starts a syllable in the middle of this word, it still can't take Dagesh Lenny because the vowel before it will cause Dagesh Lenny not to be there. So these are examples of when to use Dagesh Lenny. Now let us look at a summary of Dagesh Lenny. Dagesh means piercing, and it refers to a dot which is in the heart or the middle of a consonant. Lenny means weak. The effect of Dagesh Lenny is to harden the consonant and to change its pronunciation. Dagesh Lenny may only go in 6 consonants: Vaith, Rimel, Thaleth, Kaf, Fe, Thou. Dagesh Lenny may go in these 6 consonants if any one of them starts a syllable at the beginning or in the middle of a word. Dagesh Lenny may not go in any one of these 6 consonants if there is a vowel immediately before it. Now let me go to YouTube and get a summary. Let me just make sure that I can hear that. So let me just share sound. Good. So I've shared the sound here, and I'm going to go to this website. While we're waiting for it to load, is there any question about Dagesh Lenny?
No, Brother Bucker.
Yeah, Israel, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here, sir.
All right, do you have any questions so far about Dagesh Lenny?
Not yet, sir.
Okay. Okay, we're getting somewhere.
Dagesh Lenny. Now, the Dagesh Lenny is something we've already seen in the lesson letters with dots in chapter 1. We looked at 6 Hebrew letters that can take this thing called the Dagesh Lenny, and they were called letters. But God.
Yeah.
We are just hearing the song, but we do not see the video.
Mnemonic. To remember the 6.
We will have to stop sharing the
If they have
material
the Dagesh
first.
Lenny, they are a stop.
Yeah, repeat that for me.
Yes, what about it? I was saying that I think you should stop sharing the material first, then to share the YouTube screen so we can see the video.
Oh, stop share.
Yes, sir. We were just hearing the sound only.
Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Not yet, sir. You have to share it.
that lesson.
Oh, share the screen then.
Module was how to tell when the Dr. Lenny is there, when it isn't. And so that's what I want to do right now. The rule is that there are two conditions that need to be met for Dagesh Lenny to
Can
show
you
up.
see the screen now?
To stay there. One
Yes, we are
Can you
seeing
see the screen?
that it has to be at the
Yes.
beginning of
rewind for us, please. Go back.
What you said?
Yes, sir. I was
Second,
asking
both
you
have to be
to
met.
go backward
I'm
from
going
the
to put a big
video.
and here.
Okay.
And secondly,
Thank you very much.
Dagesh Lenny. Now, the Dagesh Lenny is something we've already seen in the lesson Letters with Dots in Chapter 1. We looked at 6 Hebrew letters that can take this thing called the Dagesh Lenny, and they were called the Bagad Kafat letters. Bagad Kafat. If you remember, this is a mnemonic to remember the 6 that can take a Dagesh Lenny. If they have the Dagesh Lenny, they are a stop or a hard sound. If they don't have it, they're a continuous sound. Now, what we didn't cover in that lesson, in that module, was how to tell when the Dagesh Lenny is there and when it isn't. And so that's what I want to do right now. The rule is that there are two conditions that need to be met for Dagesh Lenny to show up and to stay there. One is that it has to be at the beginning of a syllable. And the second, and both have to be met. So I'm going to put a big and here. And secondly, so first, it must be at the beginning of a syllable, and secondly, it must not follow a vowel. Not follow vowel. So no preceding vowel. Beginning of syllable and no preceding vowel. That's where you'll see a Bagad Kafat letter having a Dagesh Lenny. Dagesh Lenny will be in one of these letters if these conditions are met. Let's look at some examples. Okay, let's look at the word bayit. This means house. So here we have a Bagad Kafat letter, the bait, and it is beginning a word and therefore a syllable, and no preceding vowel. So the Dagesh Lenny is there and it's pronounced bayit, not vayit. Okay, do another one. Do midbar, which I think we already have seen. Means wilderness, midbar. And let us put our syllable division in there. So here we have a bait, which is a Bagad Kafat letter, and it begins a syllable, and there is no preceding vowel. This is the closed consonant CVC. There's a silent shava here, right? It's not a vowel, it's a syllable marker. Silent shava. So given that this is a silent shava, our conditions are met. This letter is the beginning of a syllable, no preceding vowel. So the Dagesh Lenny is there. Dalet is also a Bagad Kafat letter, so it could take a Dagesh Lenny. Does it meet those two conditions? Is it at the beginning of a syllable? Nope, it's at the end of a syllable. And not only that, it follows a vowel. So on both counts, it's the Dagesh Lenny is eliminated, ticks off. Okay, let's look at another word. This is a good word for this because there's lots of Bagad Kafat letters in it. Ko, cha, kochavim. 3 syllables. We'll mark them. Kochavim. So, first, they all start with Bagad Kafat letters. This one, this one, and this one. So kaf should have a Dagesh Lenny. Well, we see it does. Why does it? Because it starts a syllable and there's no preceding vowel. No problem. This kaf also starts with syllable, but is there a preceding vowel? Holam vav, very much a vowel. So Dagesh Lenny takes off. No Dagesh Lenny here because of the preceding vowel. Beit, another Begad Kafat letter, begins a syllable, so that's fine. But there's a preceding vowel, so no Dagesh Lenny. So both conditions have to be met for the Dagesh Lenny to stay there. Now let me give you another one here. Devarim. Devarim is also a word we looked at. De. Va. Rim. We looked at this earlier. This is words. It means words. We'll put our divisions in there too. Devarim. Now, this one is a Begad Kafat letter. Begins with syllable. No preceding vowel. Therefore, Dagesh Lenny. Meets both conditions. This is also a Begad Kafat letter. It begins a syllable, so that's fine. And does it have a vowel before it? Well, Devarim, in fact, it does. This guy is a vocal Shiva. In the presence of a vowel, any vowel, even the smallest of vowels, the vocal Shiva is the most reduced of all vowels. Even that little vowel is enough to scare away the Dagesh Lenny that would otherwise be here. Now, when you look at this word, you have to be a little careful because you look at this word and there's no Dagesh here. You look at this word, which one? Didn't I have one here? Devarim. Yes, here. This one, same thing. You got a beit following a Shiva. There is a Dagesh. Here you have a beit following Shiva. There is no Dagesh. Why is that? It's because this is a silent Shiva and this is a vocal Shiva. So when you're thinking about Dagesh Lennies and whether they should or shouldn't be there, you have to first figure out whether your Shiva is vocal or not, if you have one there. Because a vocal Shiva is a vowel, a silent Shiva is not a vowel. A silent Shiva is simply a syllable marker. And any vowel will cause Dagesh Lenny to take off. Okay, so Dagesh Lenny is pretty weak, really. Any vowel is going to scare him away. Let's take a look at one other example, one other case. And this is, if you have a word, you can have a word called like ken. Ken means thus or so. Dagesh Lenny in a Begad Kafat letter, no vowel preceding it. But if you precede it with a little metheg there, Vayhi, a separate word. Vayhi means and it was. So, and it was so. When you have these two together, then Dagesh Lenny disappears. So let's get rid of it. So even in the presence of a vowel that is in the preceding word, Dagesh Lenny takes off. So it's not that strong. Now we had an example, a similar example to this, where we had voker here instead. In our Genesis 5, Genesis 1:1-5 reading. Let me try and do this here. Okay, we'll copy this down here. And let us put in voker, which is what the word was. Which is it? Voker. And there was a makef here. This is where it says Vayhi Erev, there was evening, Vayhi Voker Yom Echad. There was evening, there was morning, day one. Now this is the same situation here. You have a Begad Kafat letter that could take a Dagesh Lenny, begins a syllable, but it follows a vowel. Now here it follows even more closely than here because you have a makef, just join the whole thing together. So, but that's why you say Vayhi Voker, not Vayhi Boker. So Dagesh Lenny can disappear quite easily. The thing to remember is really just our two conditions. Dagesh Lenny will only be there if it's at the beginning of a syllable and does not follow a vowel, any vowel, even a vocal Shiva.
Okay, now let me share something else new share.
Woo! Adapted Mind
Hold on.
Math! Come explore the site with me. I'm in first grade,
Hold on.
so I'll...
Hey, you want to get leaner, stronger, learn some cool calisthenics, body weight skills, but right now you may
get this off. Let me go to the new share. Okay. Okay. Now, let me see if this will work. Now we have a Hebrew grammar textbook that you will be able to access on JSP Google Drive. And I want you to notice that on, let me see if I can take this off. On page 24, it deals with Dagesh Lenny. Now I'm dealing with the numbering at the top of the screen, which is the numbering that Adobe Reader gives to the Hebrew grammar. Let me see if I can move the videos somewhere else. All right, good. All right, so this is Dagesh, and let me just go up to the right page. Coming. All right. Go up to the preceding page, page 23. Okay, this is where I'm talking about. This is page 23, and it goes on to page 24 of the Practical Grammar for Classical Hebrew, written by Mr. Wayne Green. It is on the JSP Google Drive. I had requested it of the administration, and they were able to download it onto that drive. In order to help you understand the Hebrew better, I recommend that you go to that JSP Google Drive and look for the Hebrew grammar book, Practical Grammar for Classical Hebrew, and download it onto your laptop or phone or your thumb drive. Now, this is the lesson that we are looking at, entitled Dagesh, specifically Dagesh Lenny. Now, Dagesh, as you can see here, means piercing, and it is a dot in the heart of a letter. And there are two kinds of Dagesh, you have Dagesh Lenny, or weak, and there is Dagesh Forte, or strong. I'm not dealing with Dagesh Forte today, only with Dagesh Lenny. So in the book, it says there are 6 letters which have each a hard and a soft pronunciation, indicated in writing with and without a dot. And so these are the letters. You have Vaith, which is really a B. You have Gimel, or what is called Rimmel, near to the beginning of this book. It's really a G. Thaleth, D. Kaf, K. Fe, and Thou. This is the soft sound. But when you put a dot in the heart of each of these letters, it changes them. This is supposed to be a V sound at the top, but it becomes a B sound when you put a dot in it. This is supposed to be an R sound without a dot, but when you put the dot in this letter, Gimel, it has a G sound, a hard G sound, G. Without the dot, this is a TH sound, but when you put the dot in it, it's a D sound. Without the dot, Kaf is just a KH, but when the dot is put in the Kaf, it's just a K sound. Without the dot, this letter here is a PH sound, but when the dot is put in, it is a P sound. And the Thou, without the dot, it's a T sound, but when the dot is put in, it's a T sound. So these 6 letters without the dot are soft, that is pronounced as spirants, that is, you put your breath into the pronunciation of them. When the dot is inserted or placed in the center of the letter, then the letter becomes hard. This dot is called Dagesh Lenny. Dagesh Lenny then applies to the 6 letters, Vaith, Rimmel, Thaleth, Kaf, Fe, Thou, which are known mnemonically, that is, as a memory device. They're known as Bigad Kefat. Bigad Kefat. And when the Dagesh is put in them, it hardens them. And here are examples of letters with and without Dagesh Lenny. For example, Batak. Notice that Dagesh Lenny is in the base. However, when there is a vowel before, when there is a, or it's when the letter begins a syllable at the beginning of a word, or begins a syllable in the middle of the word, you can put the Dagesh Lenny in it. When there is a vowel immediately before any of the letters that can take Dagesh Lenny, notice that Dagesh Lenny does not stay there. It can't go there. So there is a hirik before the Vaith, and you don't put the Dagesh Lenny in it. There is a kames before the Vaith, you don't put the Dagesh Lenny in it. Let's go here also. Notice that Gimel has the Dagesh Lenny in it. It begins the word, it begins the syllable at the beginning. It also begins the syllable here of this word in the middle. However, when there is a vowel before the Gimel, you don't put the Dagesh Lenny in it. When there is a vowel before the Gimel, you don't put the Dagesh Lenny in it. Let's look at another example. Notice that this has Dagesh Lenny in this letter Daleth. It begins the syllable at the beginning of the word. It also begins a syllable in the middle of the word. Again, notice that there is a Dagesh Lenny in the letter Kaf. It begins the syllable in the beginning of the word. It also begins the syllable in the end of the word. However, when there is a vocal shawa, as was pointed out in the video, when there is a vocal shawa that you pronounce, which has an E sound, we, you don't put the Dagesh Lenny in Thalith. And when there is a vowel again before the Thalith, you don't put the Dagesh Lenny in it. Because when there is a vowel immediately before it, it will not go there. Notice that when there is a vocal shawa here also before the kaf, the Dagesh Lenny does not stay, it goes. When there is a vowel again before the kaf, the Dagesh Lenny does not stay. Okay, here you have para. Notice that pe, the letter pe, that it starts the syllable at the beginning of the word. You put the Dagesh Lenny in it. It also starts a syllable at the end of the word, yispor. But when there is a vowel before the fe, you can't put Dagesh Lenny in it. Again, when there is a vowel before the fe, you can't put the Dagesh Lenny in it. Okay. Well, I think you have seen enough. So what I want you to do is to download this from the JSP Google Drive and turn to page 23. It goes into page 24 of the Practical Grammar for Classical Hebrew. And if you do have a problem getting access to the book, just let me know so that I can fix that problem for you. Now, let me see if there's anything else to be said about this. All right, here's some more information. So examples in lines 1 show that Dagesh Lenny appears in a letter, Veith, Rimel, Thalith, Kaf, Fe, Thau, when that letter commences or begins a syllable in the beginning or middle of a word, providing that there is no vowel immediately before that letter. The opposite is true. The examples in lines 2 show that Dagesh Lenny is absent when the letter Veith, Rimel, Thalith, Kaf, Fe, Thau does not commence or begin a syllable, or when at the beginning of a syllable, it is immediately preceded by a vowel. Okay, so I think if you get access to that book for yourself, you will be able to learn better than just the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, and I am finished for today, but do you have any questions on anything that was said concerning Dagesh Lenny?
No, sir. All clear.
All right. I'm deliberately going slowly. Normally speaking, I really should be, in order to cover the information in the grammar, going faster. But I realize that when something is completely new, it takes a longer time to learn it than when you have known it before. So I'm just taking it one lesson at a time, rather than different grammatical lessons in one setting. What I want you to do is to study the PowerPoint lesson I will send to you this afternoon. Next week, I'm giving you a test just on Dagesh Lenny. Don't bother study Dagesh Forte unless you really want to. I will not test you on Dagesh Forte. I will only be testing you on Dagesh Lenny. Okay, so make sure you try to access this grammar. If it's not available for some reason, just email me and let me know, and I will fix that problem.
All right, Brother Buck.
All right, so I will see you.